Good evening, everyone. And this is the very first time that I would be interacting with such esteemed poets. I have been in conversation with a lot of authors, both national and international, but I cannot really pretend to understand poetry. I do scribble here and there. But I thought that, okay, we already have had like a formal introduction. So maybe let's begin on a poetic note, which is there any poet or a favorite poem of yours which you think is very resonant of who you are? It could be your own poetry or could be something. So on that note, we can begin and probably we can take it from there. Yeah, anyone
Okay.
can, right? There's no structure I have actually in mind, so we can start with anyone.
Okay, I'm Captain Sahana Sundar, and a poet, an author, and a YouTuber. So for me, poetry is always from the heart. There are poetries from candlelit ghazals, and today's the neon lit poetry, where we can see the young poets coming and speaking on open mics. So I appreciate all kinds of poetry, starting from Mirza Galib to today's poets, because the ink has changed. That's it. Otherwise, the essence of poetry is the same, because poetry speaks about emotion, maybe love, maybe a heartbreak, maybe about hope, or even about the curiosity of life. So for me, poetry is all this.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I won't be able to give such a short answer. Because my situation is that my poetry always came from a very deep source. And because it came from a very deep source, it bypassed a lot of other streams of poetry which have existed, which have evolved all over the world in our own country. And I've gone to the source, that is traditional cultures. I wouldn't say primitive, original traditional cultures, say of the Bhili and Bhilali, the Warli, the Todas, and I have been greatly influenced by their, by their intense connection with their environment, intense connection with emotions and environment, intense connection with the feeling of belonging in a much wider space. Yeah, in a much wider space, much wider tradition. And it suited me very well because I come from 4 nationalities. That is Irish, Spanish, English and Indian. And I believe somewhere there's French also. So all of this from all my grandparents. So all of this has had an impact, genetic and other impact, to disperse me. So the issue of belonging has always been a very, who are you? You know, you've got a Maharashtrian name. I said, no, I was born in UP. How can you be born in UP or Maharashtrian? I said, no. So these questions of identity have always besieged me, and the questions of belonging in a deeper sense had always besieged me. But as I told you, I bypassed this and went into traditional cultures and became an assistant to and worked with shamans from various communities, bhagats from various communities, out of my own passion and interest, where I felt that I didn't have to belong to this or this or this or this culture. I belonged to this tradition which made me who I really am. And so my influences, because they've come a lot from tribal chanting, healing chanting, and all of these areas, has enriched me as a person. But in the process, I bypass my audience. So it becomes very taxing for an audience. But I nevertheless am very, very full of these traditions. So I can't, when you talk about poetry, I can't see it on paper. I see it in sound. I see it in performance. I see it in movement. I see it in all of. That's why I've collaborated with so many different artists and people. Because that's where poetry began. In the oldest days, poetry began with song. With songs, with hymns, with ritualistic incantations. That's where we began. And that is very steeped in me. I have a poem here. Am I permitted to read it?
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah.
Please.
I have a poem here where one night I got up and I woke and I said, what is it that's bothering me the most? Is there anything that's bothering me now? I'm going on 75. Is there anything that's bothering me that I haven't put to rest? And there came an old question. Where do you belong? Okay, and it came back again. I said, dash it, I thought I had finished with this question, So anyway, I have a poem which has that line, which begins with that line. I'll recite it the way I usually recite. Yeah? Where do you belong? I ask myself. In the crevices of palm lines, moving inexorably towards creaseless skin till they dissolve in perfection. In the breath of the void, yearning for flesh. In the musk hour of embrace, wet with song. Where do you belong? I ask myself. Do you belong to a song before it had words, to a womb before it conceived, to the truth before it mutated to the terrible emptiness of a lie, to love, to be discovered, to love waiting to be discovered, to love, to a seed in the forest of being? I wait for answers, hope for answers, in streets full of days and nights full of empty rooms, a clock outside the window counting the hours, and the moon pressing itself on the window pane. Where do you belong? I ask myself. Where do you belong? I ask myself. Where do you belong? I ask myself. Listen to me. In the silence of your night, if your day is too crowded with doing, listen to me. Listen to me in the silence of your night, and the shells of your ears are too flooded with the voices of praise. Listen to me. Sit down for a moment, just a moment. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, look out. It's morning. There's something in the air, an old familiar fragrance, not of flowers or clothes or the earth after shower, or a perfume of a smile or your skin, sun glowing after love, something. Remember what it is till it becomes flesh, or it will dissolve, and if you'll forget where you are, who you are, your beginning, and you will forget you are here, alive. Now, answer me. Where do you belong?
Thank you so much.
Really nice.
Sir.
Mr. Solanki, you have put me in a quandary by asking me to speak poetically about myself. Because when I see poetry, I see myself as a consumer rather than a producer of poetry. So, for me, poetry is a music of the soul. It comes from within, it is polished by your mind, comes from your heart, and then it receives the general approbation or criticism that it deserves. For me, poetry is an activity that has been there for centuries, which resonates within me. And when like a line of poetry, I always think about how it attires ties up with me. For instance, when you read the lines of Pablo Neruda, tonight I can write the saddest lines. The thing that I did not have, to think that I do not have her, to feel that I have lost her. Then it's something which it resonates in everybody's heart. At some time or the other, you must have had that feeling. And that is what poetry is for me. Something that echoes deep within me. Something that comes from the elsewhere and forms a connection between the world, between my relationships and with me.
Thank you so much for that. So I'll probably come to you, and I was deeply interested in, because you said you are a consumer of poetry rather than basically a poet yourself, but you have written such a great book. I'm sorry I was not able to read entirely, but whatever I could gather from it, I think what I'm trying to ask over here is, in your book, in the very first chapter itself, you talk about, you make an inquiry into origins of Urdu. And then you talk about Amir Khusro being the all-consummate poet, right? Nobody could ever surpass, right? But yet you have a biography on Ghalib. And there you mention basically various genres of poetry in Urdu, right? Which is ghazal, nazm, you have qaida, you have rubai. So I guess what I'm trying to ask over here is, what would you say to an aspiring Urdu poet? Where should they begin?
You know, the number of genres that are there in Urdu poetry, all of them are not any popular today. Today, what is the most popular form of poetry is the Urdu ghazal. It has received criticism and it has received a lot of praise as well. And there was a time in early 20th century when it was considered as a semi-savage way of expressing yourself. But fortunately, ghazal has survived. And if you look at it, it is perhaps for a young and budding poet, I would advise that they go through the ghazal. Partly because it is extremely popular, partly because it resonates with the audience that he is speaking to, and it immediately has an immediate impact. For instance, let us take any line from Ghalib. Dil-e nadan tujhe hua kya hai, aakhir is dard ki dawa kya hai. It's a beautiful line. The line which follows that has no relationship with the one that precedes it. And that is the basic quality of the ghazal. It doesn't have a thematic unity. Each couplet is a complete whole in itself. And unlike a nazm, for instance, which is a continuous poem, like you have in English literature, like the rhyme of the ancient mariner, for instance. But those nazm and ghazal, these are the two most popular genre today. Masnavi is hardly written. Rubai we comes across off and on. Nazm is essentially, the Naat, for instance, is essentially in praise of the Prophet, and Hamd is in praise of God. These continue to be written, but they are recited only on religious occasions. So it is the ghazal which is the poetry, is the genre which poets should begin with.
So I guess my follow-up question would be, like, people are, have their own definition of ghazal, right? Probably they would end up writing a nazma. Is it possible that, I start with a ghazal, but then I realize that it was actually a nazma? So what is the essential difference between the two?
The essential difference between a ghazal and a nazm is there is a thematic unity in the nazm. A ghazal does not have that unity, though it may have a set of couplets which speaks on the same theme. Like, for instance, you have Chupke Chupke Raat Bhar Aansu Bahana Yaad Hai by Hasrat Mohani. That's a nazm, though it is sometimes touted as a ghazal also, but is essentially a nazm because it talks about a certain relationship. On the other hand, if you can take a ghazal from Ghalib, the example, like for instance, Nukta chi hai ghame dil, usko banaye na bane, kya bane baat jahan baat banaye na bane. The only thing that unites each line or couplet of this ghazal is the end verse, the end word, which should be uniform. So the second line is, मैं बुलाता तो हूँ उसको मगर है जज्बाए दिल, उस पे बन जाए कुछ ऐसे कि बिनाए न बने. You notice, न बने. And which ends with the word, इश्क पर जोर नहीं है ये वो आतिश गालिब, जो लगाए न लगे और बुझाए न बने. Again, you see now, न बने. So that is the essential feature of a ghazal. It is AA, BA, CA, DA, and as it goes on.
So on and so forth. So that meter. So I was basically also interested in, you know, when we talk about poetry, we usually, as a Kathak dancer also, I'm very, very wary of using the word should. It should be this and it should be that. And that is why probably I asked that question like, okay, should this be ghazal and should this be nazma, or it's just the essence that you were talking about? All right.
That's right.
Yeah. So now from Ghalib we come to some, you know, the paheli and the riddle part of it, and this is open for the audience as well. This is really the fun part of the conversation where it's not just poetry, it is also basically appealing to your developing of vocabulary, which as an English language teacher I really appreciate. And through poetry your vocabulary can be worked upon, and it is a riddle that you need to solve. So I wanted to ask ma'am, how exactly did you come up with, you know, riddle and paheli aspect, and how is it different from serious poetry, let's say Ghalib's poetry?
Galib actually, the poetry was from the throne, I can say. He whispered into the courts, okay, when the empires were crumbling, okay. But the today's poets are voicing into the world where the span of attention is crumbling, I can say. So I have written for today's audience, I wanted to improve the vocabulary of the students in a very fun and in a very magic way. So it can also, my poetry book, Are You Smart with Words? You can either, you can either use it even in a family party to just engage all the people over there and also give some knowledge about vocabulary. So I'm going to read around 4 poetry from my book Are You Smart with Words, and I want you to answer this, and whoever answers I'll give this book to them. Okay, so let me start. I start with a very, very simple poetry, like, in almost every house I have been, I have watched them gaping at the screen. They loll and slop and lounge about and stare until their eyes pop out. They sit and stare and sit. A very, very easy puzzle I have given you. It's a 10-lettered word. Can anyone of you answer?
From the audience?
I want it from the audience. Yes.
Television is the correct answer. Wonderful.
I'll give you the name. Yeah. Come, please come and receive this.
And we do have, if time permits, we do have a question answer round from the audience as well. And I just wanted to announce that the best question will be given a book hamper.
Okay, one more. I can do 3 of them. I'll do only 3. Yeah? Very, very easy answers. As I was annoyed, I argued and argued with all rage and fear as I missed a lot. I was unsatisfied, disappointed and cold, upset, bitter, angry and bored. Yes, who can, anyone? So when do you get angry, lost? Yeah? It starts from F. Yes? Correct. Again the same person? Is it?
No, it's a different person.
Yeah. Thank you. Correct. Well said. Yeah. So I have, I mean, wherever I go, to the schools, as I'm a captain, Usually I'll be invited as a chief guest for Independence Day and Republic Day. So I take these books and ask these questions, you know, the children crowd and everybody wants this book. Yeah. So the next was, it was a tangled yarn weaving in and out, so complex and dense, so strong and hard to break, held fast and secure, no matter how I shake. Anybody?
Perhaps you could repeat.
One more should I repeat? Once more should I repeat?
Yeah, repeat the same one.
So it was a tangled yarn, tangled, you know, weaving in and out, so complex and dense, so strong and hard to break, held fast and secure, no matter how I shake. Anybody? No one? Sir, from the panelists also I can.
Is it
Yes.
a web?
Not web exactly. Web is, you
Net.
can easily.
Net.
You're closer. I'll give it to you. No. It's a knot.
Not.
Okay. A knot which goes in and out, which is dense and yes. So I'll give it to sir because yes, he was.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, that's about my poetry, and I have written about nature. I have written about philosophy of life, and I have written around 500 poems, which is not published, and on various aspects of life. Maybe my curiosity, even about the rain. So, if I can read one poetry, like about the muse, you know. No. See, we always think that somebody is influencing us. A poet is influencing us. That's how we write. That's why we write. Isn't it? Most of us think like that. But let me read out my poem. My eyes were set upon a poet of grace. The miracle muse woke, as if stirred by art. Words I once locked away began to appear, but distance grew, and yet the light stayed there. Through hazy paths and joyful fear, I found the glow that felt so near. It was not him or his shadow in flight. It was my own inner light burning bright. This is what modern poetry does. It brings us closer to ourselves.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you so much for that. That's wonderful. Sir, if I may now come to you, I went through your YouTube channel and I was really struck by one thing, that apart from just mere recitation, there is a performative aspect to your poetry. So could you talk about that a bit, and probably if you want to recite a few poems or rather perform?
Okay, repeat that question.
Yeah, so I saw that there was a lot of performance element that is involved, and I, being a Kathak dancer, I was immediately attracted. So I was attracted to the musicality, the inherent, the lyrical nature of the way you say things, right? So when you're talking, it's a very different person, but when you start actually reciting, you become like a poet. So could you just talk to us about, and maybe you can probably perform a poetry or two for us. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. See, it's like this, that I come from a very big family. So I was never heard. I was though third in line, there were 7 of us. So I was always trying to connect and my voice to be higher and more perceptible than the rest of them, but still, no. So I was very slow. That's okay, sir, let it be. I was very slow in taking in, and by the time I had a chance to get it out, it would. So I had a lot of inner life, had a lot of inner thought. So what would happen is reality or experiences or thoughts would get inside, and they would be churning almost like a manthan inside, yeah? And they would form their own dialogues, and it would never come out unless the situation arose. And so what I was writing then was not me. I was writing pretty poetry when I was young. But it was only when I began to, with himmat, began to take out these rhythms and these sounds which were inside me, was I suddenly alive in a different space. Yeah? So that when I write a poem, it's very internal. And I'm a very sedate fellow. When I'm writing, I just focus and I write. But when I recite, I am imbued with another sense of urgency, another life, another light. And this has largely come from, sorry I have to give you this explanation here. It's largely come from all the wise shamans, bhagats and people who I have been associated with. Because with them there was a natural rhythm in everything they did. And what they performed or sang or taught other young ones to sing was not in the tone they ran their everyday life. Their everyday life was very boring, it was very whatever. They would also cook the food with their wives and kids and whatever. But when there was this state, it is nothing a great mystical state, nothing. It was a state of rhythm. And that appealed, and not that I borrowed it from anywhere, that appealed to me that the more I sort of got into the rhythm, it was the rhythm and the music itself that brought out the feeling. So it's like poetry always was, this rhythm, this feeling, and afterwards it was paper, pencil and all of that, right? So I remember when I was when A.R. Rahman was and myself were working on a composition, he said, okay, read it out. I'd read it out. Okay, what does it sound like? I said, what do you mean, what does it sound like? Does it remind you of anybody else? And this used to frustrate him because I said, no, this is coming from me. He said, no, but what is the echo of, there must be some echo, some point of reference. I said, boss, I am your point of reference. Listen to me. So that was the big differences there. You know, we're used to other rhythms and other people's voices. So now what should I read? I'll have to read it. And say, that's okay. Huh? I don't sing, I chant. Okay? And I'm sorry, at the moment I can't run around a lot. I've damaged my back. That's why I'm walking around. Walking stick. All right. Quietly when the wind blows, I rise and walk the night with nightjar snails and owl wings and silent words in flight. Stardust on my bare skin, moonlight in my hair. I move through gusts of crickets and climb a midnight stair. Over domes of sleeping trees I glide on wings of dark, sway with music of the dead and the creaking of my bark. There's forever in my breathing and wandering in my song, for I'm on my way to dawn's way, carrying my heart along. Stardust on my bare skin, moonlight in my hair. I move through gusts of crickets and climb a midnight stair, quietly when the wind blows. Stardust on my bare skin, I move through gusts of crickets, over domes of sleeping trees. There's forever in my breathing and wandering in my song, for I'm on my way to dawn's way, carrying my heart along.
Lovely. That was great.
Actually, there's a sacred space blessing of the Bhilalas. Bhilalas are group, a sect of the Bhils. And they are great songsters. And they make a song or they make of something out of everything. So I went to a Bhilala settlement called Jhinjhini. This is in Madhya Pradesh. And where used to be Jhabua. Now the district has been moved. It says, unfortunately I can't dance right now, otherwise I would have done it for you because of my back. Yeah, okay. So, this is when you prepare the ground and make it sacred. Okay? White flowers, red flowers, yellow flowers, bells on dancing feet. Godari Mata from Godaran, whispered in her hair. Red flowers, green flowers, bells on dancing feet. Hungi Mata from Mama. And you'll stop and you'll look at the audience, and the audience will say, from Pahargar, and that's up. Then you'll ask another one from so-and-so place. So it always was dynamic, always performative, always full of life, always prodding the audience. You tried to wake up the audience and ask these questions just now, right? Bhilala Bhagad would be down there. He would be going up into their faces, he'd be shouting at someone, he'd be dancing somewhere. So all poetry, all song according to the Bhalalas, a movement. So every community has its movement. I collected a lot of folklore, I was collecting songs of the Bhil. And I went one night, they said, it's after the rain, now the time all the girls will come out to sing and the boys will come out to sing. So something like 2 o'clock in the morning, we went in there and there was this pre-marriage celebrations. It was virtually an orgy actually. So I said, oh my God, should I be here or should I not be here? They were just dancing provocatively. Then I sat down quietly and then some girls and boys came. They asked, who are you and what are you doing? Half Hindi, one of them knew 1 or 2 words of English, and then I said, no, you talk in your language. And they started. And they made up a song, just instantly made up a song. The guys and the girls, and they were dancing and they were making up the song. They said, this is in honor of you. I felt very pleased. I told the driver, have you made a recording? Yes, we made a recording. So I went back to the guest house to listen to it. And what do you think they were singing? Who is this idiot from the city? And he thinks he's very smart with his dirty little machine. He's trying to take away our voices. Take off all his clothes, take off his shoes, shave his head bald, do all of this and send him crawling back to the city. So the driver said, no, I'm not translating this. I said, why? No, I can't translate it. Then he told me. So the sense of humor, everything is very live. There's humor, there's romance, there's erotica, there's politics.
Yes.
Yeah, so, and a lot of it is movement. Jumping, spinning, lying down. So, for me, poetry has always been in movement.
Thank you so much, sir, for that. It was really wonderful experience. Like literally, I had goosebumps when you were. And I forgot all my questions actually, whatever I had prepared. So I'll just go with the flow and ask probably.
Sorry,
No, not at all. It's fine. It was so nice. Actually, it shows that how poetry has become a part of their lives. And that was the most important thing. So something that we city-goers have let it go out of our lives.
Yes, actually it emits from our lives, it
Yes,
weaves around
it
us.
weaves around your life, it's movement, it's the dance, it's song. And that is what actual real poetry which comes from within you is all about.
But actually, just to segue into some another question that I had for you, what was your experience about writing a biography of Ghalib? Because there are so many biographies out there, and yours is a unique because it includes translation. So you have made Ghalib accessible to the younger generation as such. So why Ghalib and why now?
You see, Ghalib is a poet about whom hundreds of books have been written. And he's the only poet, now if we consider the poets of the 19th century to which Ghalib belonged, more books have been written on Ghalib than if you take all the Urdu poets of the 19th century. But there was once lacuna there. Most of the books have been either about Ghalib, dealing with his life, or about his poetry. There was not a single volume which would give each of them equal weight. So that is the lacuna I have tried to fill. In addition to that, I thought, considering the fact that most of us are not very familiar with the Urdu poetic tradition, to give a short account of the evolution of the Urdu language, which particular emphasis on the milestones. Urdu, as you know, is an Indian language. It springs from the soul of India. It has borrowed from Persian, it has borrowed from Turkish, it has borrowed from Hindi, it has borrowed from every language that you can think about. And it is quintessentially Indian. So the evolution of the language, once you read the evolution, how Urdu evolved, you should be able to put Ghalib in a proper perspective. So where he belongs to the tradition. Because Ghalib was standing at a crossroad. It was the end of the classical tradition, and he was the first of the modern poets. And that is one of the reasons why that, number one, it is very difficult to pinpoint him or put him into a particular field, put him into a straight gap arrangement. He belongs to all ages, he belongs to all time. He has crossed the boundaries of space and time and resonates today as he did when he was first singing those songs.
Amazing.
So I can add on to this. Ghalib's poetry is eternal. Okay, Ghalib cannot be called only as a poet because he was the heart of the universe.
True. In fact, he has given a very good line.
Yeah.
आते हैं गैब से ये मज़ामीन ख्याल में, गालिब सरीर खामा नवाए शरोश है. It says, आते हैं गैब से ये मज़ामीन ख्याल में. These themes come to me from the great beyond. The writing, the sound which my pen makes while I write on paper is basically the whisperings of the angel.
Wow.
Wow, that's nice.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So from such sublime discussion, I do have one inane question for all of you, and I'm very sorry for asking this question. Is nowadays, especially in the age of social media, Instagram, TikTok, and all of these things, everyone thinks that they can be a poet. So this is a very cliched question, probably that I have for you is, what is that one aspect of poetry that you think that people get it wrong, is misunderstood, or probably they should get it right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this is my favorite one. So, no, the answer according to me is the presence or the manifestation of otherness in a poem. You know, people write about things, about themes, they write cleverly, they'll rhyme, there's beautiful assonance, there's symbolism, there's all of this is there. It's beautifully done. It's like Roy Campbell, the South African poet. He was a very destructive guy, but he was a very powerful poet, but not an elegant poet. He was not into structures, into all of this. And at that time in South Africa, there were a lot of people who were writing elegant novels, elegant poetry, elegant plays, and they were the rave. So he went to a university class and they asked him, Mr. Campbell, you know, what do you think of these writers? You know, this famous, this one and that one and that one and that one. So he answered very beautifully. He says, you praise the firm restraint with which they write. I'm with you all the way. They use the snaffle, you know, for the horse, you clip. They use the snaffle and the curb all right, but where's the bloody horse?
Yes. There are the words, but where is the soul? Right.
But the rawness of poetry, the moment that rawness goes from it, that otherness goes from it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's wonderful, sir. I can, because poetry, you know, It is a journey of the heart, I can say. Okay, from the time of Galib to Gupshap, like today's poets are fearless. And you can talk about Maya Angelou is my favorite poet because she stood for dignity, isn't it? And her Why Caged Birds Sing, that is one of the favorite poems. And also the phenomenal woman that she recited in the White House really gathered a lot of impetus. And the way she comes out with that rawness, what you were talking about, yes. She was a poet of rawness, I can say.
That reflects life.
That reflects life.
Yeah. Yes. And you can speak about many poets like Tagore when he wrote, because that time India was under oppression. British reign was there, and he wrote to awaken the Indians from the deep slumber, isn't it? And he asked each Indian to get up and yes, get up, rise, and then understand that you are under slavery, get up and fight for the country. So each poet in different eras have written for maybe a social cause, or so a lot of poets had a social impact. Recently, one of my fellow poet, Sulekha Chandra, because I conduct the World Poetry Day on my Spark Igniting Minds. So she wrote one poem after seeing Kashmiri Files. She wrote about the ghav, the wound that they have left on Kashmiris. She herself is a Kashmiri. And that poem, you know, which she really sang in my World Poetry Day, she sang the same poem in a theatre after the film was shown. And great applause, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, she
is
captured
wonderful.
everybody over
Yes.
there. So poetry can do wonders.
It really can, and I think that it is like very unfair on our part. It's only 45 minutes and we're really running out of time. I apologize for all of these things, but I really wanted to go to the audience very quickly and ask them this. Like you said, Tagore wrote because he wanted to awaken the masses. So I just wanted to awaken the audience members. And if you have any questions for any of the panelists, yeah, please.
So, good evening to all. I want to thank you all for such an informative interaction. It just feels like home. So, my question to all is, since past 2 years, I feel really passionate about writing. But when I write or when I try to write, it just like I feel there's something missing. So, I just want to ask you all that how to give structure to your words, how to articulate them, how to add depth to your words, so that when some reader comes and read it, it just not feel like a reflection from someone's life, but it feels like a blow to them, and they just wake up. So I just want to ask that.
Looks like a question.
Okay, no, to this question, sit, why don't you sit, you will be more relaxed. The point I want to make over here is that the core of every poem, genuine poem, the core of every poem, any poem, is not the idea. It's not the frills and the dressing and Christmas decorations and puja, whatever, but it is the feeling that drives a poem. Yeah, it may be a small feeling, it may be anything, that's the most human, that's the most pure. That will bring the form to a poem. That will give a form to a poem. You know, just like a river rushes into lowland, it will take the shape of the space that's there. So you need that power of feeling, you need that you know, you have to say it. It will dictate the form.
Totally.
We get into the whole business of form and structure, you will not get anywhere. It will be artificial. That's why a lot of these micro poems and whatever that you see on the net, it's a play with words. And I think where we're losing out is the genuineness of the feeling. If your feeling is right, the words will come. If the words come, the form will come. Doesn't matter if it's rough. Look at the work of Kamala Das. There's no great form, no nothing in it. I remember her telling me, when I create, I fly. So you should let yourself go. We are all so self-conscious about what we say, with the ideas, how are you going to say it? So even before words have come out, you strangled yourself. And why do we do it? We do it because we want to appear in a certain way to others.
Yes.
Forget about others. Write your feelings, express the power of your feelings, your raw emotion. That's where your work will start from.
Absolutely.
If you will just permit me to add a line to what Mr. Randhir Khare has said. You know, to begin to write, you must first learn to live.
Wow.
Because it is when you live in the real sense, it's then that writing will flow from you. Because it should come from deep within you. It comes from your heart.
So poetry is not words. It is the emotion. It is a feel. Yeah, that bhav. Okay, that should come out. So you will express yourself.
My name is Satish Pendarkar. When you're writing, say, a novel or a play or something, you know the resolution, how it's going to end, and you have a definite end. So you finish the novel or the play at that point in time. But what about a poem? How do you know when it's going to end? How do you decide for yourself?
It's never going to.
When will it end?
You
You can't decide. Please, you can't decide. That's when art drives you. You don't drive art. And if you really feel about the subject, the topic and the feeling, it will find its closure. And it's nothing better, nothing more satisfying is to read a poem which has a natural closure. Yeah? That is, always remember that, don't try and control, let it control you.
Hi, this is Satish. Again, another Satish. Well, poetry doesn't need an end. It's just like your heart, always open. Okay, so the question is very simple, and it's to Faiyaz. And then I'll come to Randhir, right? So, how difficult was it to translate Galib?
That was my question also.
How difficult was it to translate Galib into English? Because, a reader of Urdu ghazal and Urdu literature, it feels like, it is always difficult to carry the essence, carry across Galib somewhere else. It's difficult. So how difficult it was?
As they say, poetry is lost in translation. So the and ghazal is one of the most difficult genres to translate, partly because of the structure, and partly because it is a dense form where two lines encapsulate a thought which can be expressed in pages. So the difficult part was, and secondly, when you are translating one language into another, what happens is that you should not just translate word by word, but you have to take into account the nuances of that language and compare it with the nuances, with the cultural ethos of that language, to give the reader a feeling for what the poet has tried to convey. And Ghalib, being a poet, layered poet, each of his sentences have many meanings. He himself, for instance, says, do not take every word that comes into my poem as a treasure trove of meaning. Under the circumstances, there is very difficult to say that my translation is the right translation and the other person is not the right translation. So before you begin to translate, you have to feel that what Ghalib is trying to say, and then say it with all your heart, with all your soul.
Okay, I could just recall someone like Eunice D'Souza who said, poets are best met in poetry, not in books.
Absolutely. True. That is true. So on that note, I think I thank you all the esteemed speakers for your valuable time. And as a non-poet, one thing that I can definitely take away from this particular session, and I hope everyone will agree with this, is that probably if you want to write poetry or write anything, write from the place of authenticity rather than trying to impress anyone. This is what one major thing that I would be thinking. On that note, I thank you everyone for joining this particular session, and I thank all the organizers, especially Dr. Manjiri ji, for giving all of us this opportunity to have this riveting discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That
You
was
managed to
indeed.
control it very well.
Thank you so much.